Welcome to ITV. This is Dr. Yavuz Selim Sılay. I am really thrilled about the huge interest coming from our viewers across Africa. As you know, more than 40 countries and more than 900 million viewers are watching this show. And ITB stands for Idea to Business, Innovation to Brand, and Interest-Free to Baraka and Abundancy. In this show, I promise you that I will be bringing you the best people that can really support innovation, entrepreneurship, and also build bridges between Africa and the global world. Today, I have a phenomenal guest that I have known from the United States for many years, the president and the CEO of Society of Physician Entrepreneur, my dear friend, my dear colleague, Arlen Meyers. He is with us today. So I'm really thrilled. I know it's bright and early in Denver today, and I'm really thrilled that you are able to connect with us, Arlen. I'm really excited.
Well, thanks for having me, and it's congratulations on your platform.
Thank you. Arlen, you were an inspiration for us. As a physician colleague, I was inspired by you in terms of building an innovation and also really building different areas of entrepreneurship. So we are doing this now globally here in Europe as well as in Istanbul as Society of Physician Entrepreneur Turkey. But today I want my viewers to get to know the really bright mind behind Society of Physician Entrepreneur, my dear colleague, Prof. Dr. Arlen Meyers. I'll just call you Arlen today because I'm really excited and thrilled that you're able to connect with our viewers. Arlen, can you tell a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we'll go into your professional achievements, accolades, and then go into Society of Physician Entrepreneur.
Sure. I'm an emeritus professor at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. I'm an ear, nose, and throat facial plastic surgeon by training. I spent my first career as an academic surgeon at the University of Colorado working with medical students, residents, fellows. And now I retired from clinical practice about 5 years ago to dedicate myself to building global innovation and entrepreneurship networks. In addition, I teach healthcare innovation and entrepreneurship in our business school and in our graduate school. So I started, like most of you, as a practicing ear, nose, and throat surgeon, physician, in this case in an academic setting, but then migrated on to healthcare innovation and entrepreneurship.
Arlen, what actually drives you to entrepreneurship? You were a well-set surgeon at his height of his career. I mean, why go crazy with entrepreneurship? Why did you want to hurt yourself?
Well, the story is that when I was, as I said, when I was an academic surgeon, my expertise is in oral cancer. I was a head and neck reconstructive surgeon and a subspecialty interest in oral cancer. And we had done, as most academic surgeons do, we did teaching, research, patient care, and community service. So part of my research portfolio involved, to make a long story short, working with other collaborators at the University of Colorado, and ultimately that resulted in inventing a gadget that optically detects cancer. It's an optical detection device that is like a Geiger counter for cancer, because when you look in the mouth and you see something that shouldn't be there, typically it requires taking a biopsy, and often that biopsy is not cancer, but it leaves a wound that has to heal and hurts patients. So the idea was to be able to illuminate, differentiate, and remove a suspected lesion in the clinic under local anesthesia. Well, that resulted in this gadget, or this invention. And what that taught me was that, like most doctors, scientists, and engineers, I thought I had a good idea. Whether it was a good idea or not is another story, but I thought I had a good idea. Secondly, I had absolutely positively no idea what to do with it in terms of how to commercialize it and get it to a patient. And the third perplexing problem was that no one was going to teach me how to do it. So I got pretty frustrated, and actually I got pretty angry. And so I decided to do something about it with some other people, and that ultimately led to the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs to help members get their ideas to patients.
That's an amazing story. And I remember when I was at Teva Pharmaceutical, I contacted you back in 2010 or something. And at that time, I was also inspired what you were doing. And at that time, we had the chance to meet. And from there, together, we were able to actually, I've seen you grow tremendously and really build this society across the United States as well as globally. But before getting into soap, can you tell more about Ireland? I mean, from your childhood, what do you think drive you to becoming a surgeon? But also, I mean, this was a typical case story. What you said can be a Harvard business case about the frustrations we have as physicians because we don't have the ecosystem built around us, right? We don't have enough ecosystem to be able to take our ideas into business because we're not ingrained in terms of education. It's not within our system. And I know you're running a phenomenal bioentrepreneurship program in UC Denver, which I would love to attend one day as your student. But can you tell more from the beginning how actually you think you became a surgeon and also an entrepreneur?
So I'm sorry to interrupt. So I grew up in an academic family. My father was a professor, so the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So I guess I decided I wanted to go into academic surgery and be a professor. But more importantly, he also had a corner drugstore in a fairly ethnic neighborhood in Philadelphia. And in fact, my first job was working in his drugstore behind the counter packing pills in those days because they didn't manufacture capsules. They had gelatin capsules that you had to actually hand make with the active pharmaceutical ingredient inside of it. And I really didn't realize it at the time, but working in a very small retail corner drugstore, I think in retrospect gave me sort of like a business perspective of how to run like a very small business after the Second World War in a very ethnic neighborhood in Philadelphia. Well, fast forward, after going to the usual route of medical school and college medical school residency, all that stuff, I just had an interest in the business of medicine. And so decided to go to graduate school and get an MBA. We could talk about that too, but that led me to an interest in the business of medicine and specifically in innovation and entrepreneurship. My thought is that globally, there's such an infinite demand for care with finite supply of resources. And so many healthcare systems are stressed and dysfunctional, including particularly that in the United States, that the only way I thought we would be able to get out of this mess is to innovate our way out of it. So that's why the focus is on innovation and entrepreneurship.
So,
and to the point, I often tell people that if you're going to do what we're talking about, you have to do what I call make it personal, but don't take it personally. In other words, you have to have a personal story like mine or yours or anybody else's that motivates you to do this. But the likelihood is that by doing it, you will fail. But you can't take that personally because everybody fails. And you just learn from your mistakes and you just keep moving on.
that's the mindset. I love what you're saying. So failure is an opportunity to learn. And rather than taking it as a defeat, if we can learn from that failure, then we're excelling. And that's clearly what you have been doing. Can you tell me what other things you have done, across your life? Because you are a surgeon, yes, you established soap. What are the things, what else you have done in terms of consulting, in terms of, building organizations? Please share with our viewers.
So that gets to the point of what is the definition of a physician entrepreneur. And there are many, many different definitions of entrepreneurship. Some people mistakenly, in my view, think it's about just starting a business. But my definition of entrepreneurship, and particularly healthcare or physician entrepreneurship, is the pursuit of opportunity under what have commonly been recognized as VUCA conditions: variability, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So there isn't a roadmap. I call it, it's almost like a treasure hunt. You kind of get clues to figure it out, but it's not like you go to this place and then you go to the next place and then you go to the next place, because that's not the way it works. So it's the pursuit of opportunity under VUCA, VUCA conditions. But the more important part of the definition is that the goal is to create user-defined or stakeholder-defined value through the deployment of innovation using a viable business model. Now, if you look at that definition and apply it to physicians or healthcare professionals in general, there are many, many ways that you can do that. That is, practice entrepreneurship other than just starting a business. So, for example, you could run a private practice or a small to medium enterprise professional service corporation. You could be a technopreneur, like the example I gave, creating a gadget or a drug or something to get it to market. You could be a social entrepreneur, trying to change the human condition. You could be an intrapreneur, which means an employee of an organization where you're trying to add user-defined, in this case, employer-defined value through the deployment of innovation. You could be a physician investor. You could be a service provider. You could be an edupreneur. You could be a financial technology entrepreneur. So there's many, many different ways to practice physician entrepreneurship. Now, to your question, I've had the good fortune of wearing all of those hats. So I've created innovation and entrepreneurship education programs as an edupreneur. I've created, with other people, the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs, which is a nonprofit, as a social entrepreneur. I'm a consultant to startups and industries, so I practice consulting with industry. Most of my life was an employed physician as an academic surgeon at an academic medical center. So I was an intrapreneur. I tried to do things from inside out to add value to the organization. I've created several companies, most of which incidentally have failed. But as a technopreneur, I practice that. And I work in various areas. So I tell people that when I was an academic surgeon, my goal was basically to tell residents and medical students and the people that I trained not to cut something because something bad is going to happen, and don't do that, and here's how you do it. Well, now I do the same thing, except I do it with people who are trying to advance entrepreneurship. So I try to give them the benefit of my experience and judgment and say, you know, in my experience, if you do this or that, here's what's going to happen, and you're not going to like it. So I'm basically doing the same thing, and so I enjoy having that portfolio. And again, the message is, if you want to be a healthcare entrepreneur, it does not necessarily involve starting a company. There's lots of ways you can add value.
So it's all about adding value. And with that perspective, you're able to get inspired and help others, whether you're an edupreneur, techpreneur, physician entrepreneur. At the end, based on your experience, everyone has their own story, right, Arlen?
Yeah, everybody comes at this a different way, but there are certain core elements, I believe, that help international healthcare entrepreneurs. I think the most important one is mindset. And you have to, because the clinical mindset or the professional mindset, the scientific or engineering mindset, is very different than the entrepreneurial mindset. Now, there are some things that are similar, and probably the thing that is most helpful for scientists, engineers, and healthcare professionals is the scientific method mindset. In other words, most of us that have been through scientific and medical training understand the notion of creating a hypothesis, formulating an experiment, running an experiment, collecting the data, analyzing the data, and then deciding whether the hypothesis is valid or not. Now, that mindset is very helpful when it comes to running a business, scaling a product, looking at customers, pricing strategies, A versus B website design. It's a way to experiment. So we're good at experimentation. Unfortunately, there's some other parts to entrepreneurship that don't lend themselves to the scientific method. So there are two overlapping circles, I like to say, the entrepreneurial mindset and the clinical mindset. And the place that you want to be is sort of where the two circles overlap.
Is one of the challenges I see also in Turkey and in Europe. You know, on one hand, I see academicians which are really focusing on the value of bringing science to forefront, preparing, you know, different articles. But on the other hand, we have the mindset of bringing these to the market with a valid business model, using the patented, methodologies, and making it run from a month to month with the right cash flow. So having and bringing these two mindsets together, sometimes for physicians, it's like, oh, I am an academician. Who am I to deal with dirty money? This is, you know, I have my, I'm well off. I don't care about this. But to your point, with SOAP's mission, how to innovate and how to create value, that is actually giving a new spirit. Even about 10 to 12 years ago, Arlen, in Turkey, many academicians, they were not supposed to even start a company. Now, their rankings at higher education is based on how many patents they produced, how many companies they form, and how they actually create also value. Not just, so the definition of university is changing, because the university is not just a teaching institute, but it's an innovation center where it's trying to bring value for our patients and caregivers, to your point.
Well, there's several reasons for that. And particularly in around the world, which I've had the good fortune, like you, to travel and talk about this. I mean, fundamentally, the rules of a given country and the culture of a given country facilitate the development of ecosystems. And ecosystems either help build business models or destroy business models. And if you don't build the right business model, you can't innovate. So when we talk to an international audience, and some countries that are less developed than others, fundamentally, including the United States, and we're seeing that now with COVID, and we're seeing that in other places, a lot of rules in the United States that used to be very cumbersome, laws, regulations, regulatory affairs, reimbursement, patents, trademarks, all that stuff, FDA approval. Well, a lot of those rules are being waived or expedited given the urgency of the crisis. Now, it remains to be seen after the crisis passes whether those rules will continue to be loosened or expedited, or whether we'll go back to the same way we did before, because ultimately there's a balance between protecting the public health and advancing innovation. Now, we're just going to have to see how all that plays out. But the primary point is that if you don't have rules, regulations, ecosystems, education, networks, mentors, support, peer-to-peer, technology transfer processes that make sense out of universities, it's very difficult for people healthcare professionals to get their idea to a patient. There's only so much you can do if the cards are stacked against you. So you have to change the deck. You have to change the rules to make this work around the world. So that's what SOAP is trying to do. We're trying to provide education, resources, networks, mentors, experience, peer-to-peer support, and non-clinical career development to help healthcare professionals get their ideas to a patient.
Excellent. And this is what we did also as SOAP here in Turkey. I worked with another organization and we accredited one angel investors network here in Turkey. And now I'm working on a private equity fund which is governed by the state to support and focus just the healthcare investment. So thanks to SOAP's vision. I want to talk more about why SOAP now, based on what you said, and also your vision on the second part. But I want to give a commercial break, and we'll be right back after this break with Professor Arlen Meyers from Denver, Colorado. Take care, Arlen, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned with ITV. Bye. Welcome back to ITB. In this show, I am actually hosting my dear colleague, Professor Dr. Arlen Meyers, who is the President and CEO of Society of Physician Entrepreneurs, which is the largest organization in physician entrepreneurship. We covered certain points about what he has achieved and the mindset and his life experience in the first part. In the second part, we will enter and start comparing notes and also give some messages for our African entrepreneurs. So thank you very much for staying with us. Arlen, welcome back. I really appreciate that you gave us a really good summary. The question is, why SOAP now? And why do you think SOAP is needed even more in this COVID-19 humanitarian crisis, which is bigger than the Wall Street issue back in 2009, and even they say it will have more impact than the Great Depression. Do you feel SOAP has a role in actually helping more in innovating healthcare? Because frankly speaking, the priorities in our lives have changed. I mean, many things that we were idolizing have went down versus our basic necessity of health and food and our freedom to certain things while keeping our health being has become the most important thing. Where do you see SOAP's mission here, and what's your message for our viewers?
Well, I think there's several reasons why we're more important now than for a while. I mean, we created the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs in January of 2011. So we've been at this for many, many years, and when we started, we were sort of a voice in the wilderness because medical schools, graduate schools, business schools, nobody was really interested in healthcare innovation and entrepreneurship. It was something that medical schools didn't feel was in their mission. They, if you want to do stuff like that, go get an MBA. There was the argument that if you're a scientist and all you're interested in doing is creating a company, then maybe you shouldn't be doing basic science and maybe you shouldn't be in a graduate school. There were all these kind of strange biases against what we were proposing. It was like going to the dark side. Money was dirty and we're just seeking the truth. Well, the world has changed. And now there's a couple reasons why I think what we're trying to do is important. One is it would be a shame to waste a crisis. And given everything that's happening, now is probably one of the best times to take advantage, as we mentioned in the previous segment, of expedited regulations and rules, of windows opening up, of all kinds of opportunities, particularly in remote medicine, digital health, telemedicine, AI, machine learning, all that stuff. So there's lots and lots of opportunity that can change significantly healthcare outcomes around the world. Secondly, many countries are stressed when it comes to their healthcare system, including the United States. And so, as we said before, there's an infinite demand for care around the world with finite resources. It's my assumption that the only way we can fix that is to make medicine more effective and efficient through the deployment of innovation and optimize the resources that we have. The third point is that generations have changed, and medical students, pre-meds, even K through 12 kids around the world are beginning to understand that what they need to succeed and the skill set they need to succeed in the fourth industrial revolution is very different than just reading, writing, and arithmetic that you learn by rote. I mean, we're talking about collaboration, complex problem solving, solving ideas and working with other teams remotely, collaboration, that kind of stuff. So we're beginning to see that and I'm involved with some K through 12 initiatives as well as pre-med initiatives, that how we train the doctors of the future is very important. And this is a time when higher ed is under stress, when government is under stress, when healthcare is under stress. So all of those models will change. And most pandemics and most significant economic disruptions significantly impact the values and the expectations of the populations that are affected. So more and more, we're hearing about the innovation imperative, the so-called innovate or die. But as I said, very few scientists, engineers, and health professionals get the necessary training they need to do it. So that's why I think the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs, which offers, again, education, resources, networks, mentors, experience, peer-to-peer support, and non-clinical career development, is so important. And finally, I would emphasize the peer-to-peer support. Healthcare entrepreneurs, by and large, are rogues. They're outsiders. They're bomb throwers. They're disruptors. They're pains in the neck. They're people that challenge the status quo. And you don't make friends in change-resistant industries by doing that. So you need people to watch your back. And you need people like yourself who are trying to do it to help you through it, particularly in this time when this has become so internationalized. So part of the reason I think we're seeing social media grow, part of the reason I think we're seeing our membership grow, is that people want to be part of our tribe because there are so few of us that we need to stick together to make it work.
Getting back in this point, I know there is a huge growth of SOAP, and across United States, you're almost in every state now with physician leaders, and we will be hosting more of the colleagues that you recommend here to highlight the importance of SOAP globally. And for our viewers in Africa, how can African healthcare entrepreneurs get involved with SOAP? What is your recommendation and your suggestions for them during these crises? I was just talking to one of my physician colleagues in Kenya, she was mentioning that they are under lockdown, they are going through many tribulations. So as a physician entrepreneur, or in other areas, they can be a healthcare investor, what they should do, how they can be involved with Society of Physician Entrepreneur.
Well, the simplest thing to do is to join us. And again, the society is an open innovation network. So that means, and we did that intentionally because we did not feel globally that sick care could be fixed from inside. No industry can be fixed from inside. It has to ingest and collaborate with what are called edge technologies. The examples that I give are aerospace. We wouldn't have GPS and telemedicine if it weren't for the aerospace program. We wouldn't have lots of things if it weren't for the IT and information and communications technology, nanomaterials, the list goes on and on and on. So you have to interface with other people in other industries that have other or different functional roles, let alone people who are simply different. That is diversity and inclusion. So people that just don't look and smell and taste and feel like you. You have to have people that look different because they bring a different perspective and they have a different culture. So specifically speaking to the African audience, at this point, I would, depending on your level of education, I would begin to educate yourself about education and entrepreneurship. You can do that through the programs we offer. I mean, right now, you could probably spend all day long watching webinars on whatever you want for free. But the point is, begin to learn about the business of medicine, about business in general, and more specifically about healthcare innovation and entrepreneurship. So, education. The second is to begin to expand your networks. Go to your LinkedIn profile or create one if you don't have one. Make sure that the profile is professional. Make sure that you begin to connect to people like me who can connect you to people in my network and your network, which at this point are fairly large. So begin to build your network before you need it. Don't use it to ask people for things. In fact, you want to build the network to see how you can help them do things, because there's a law of reciprocity. You do something for somebody else, they're likely to do something for you. The world is a round place, and what goes around comes around. The other is you should begin to, what I call, come down off the mountain. In other words, there's a lot of healthcare professionals with fancy initials after their name, including PhD, MBA, MD, whatever, who simply, when it comes to entrepreneurship, don't know what they don't know. And so you have to give up the mindset that because you went through years and years and years of school and were told your entire life you were the smartest person in the room, the fact of the matter is, when it comes to entrepreneurship, you probably don't know what you don't know. So you need to begin to understand that, and you need to begin to fill in the gaps in your education. I would also suggest that you start looking around in your local ecosystem for opportunities to participate. That means you could be an advisor, and even if it means working for free for a couple of months or whatever, as an advisor, as a mentor, as a consultant, as an advocate, working for nonprofits, as a social entrepreneur, getting connected to people, learning how to raise money. So the point is, you need to ramp up your skill set that has nothing to do with science or medicine, so that you can build that circle where they overlap. So at some point when we come out of this thing, and we will, that you're prepared to take the next step and prepare for an opportunity. The final thing I would suggest is that you need to be a problem seeker, not a problem solver. At this stage of the game, you need to understand a problem and the people who have it more than anybody else. Forget about your solution at this point. It starts with who's the customer, what is their problem, how bad is the pain, what are they willing to pay to solve it. And you should spend this time, and again, it gets back to this, make it personal, but don't take it personally. Pick a problem that trips your trigger. Pick a problem that has personal resonance for you. Maybe you have a child who has a disease that's incurable. Maybe you had a bad experience with a healthcare system and you want to fix it. Maybe you're interested in a disease that nobody seems to be able to deal with. Pick a problem, and it doesn't have to be the cure for cancer. It could be something that simply improves the value in the value chain of delivery. So for example, how do we mass produce more effective masks? Maybe that's something you want to deal with because you've had a relative that didn't have a mask and died of COVID. There's lots and lots of ways to skin this cat. So pick a problem that trips your trigger.
So becoming a problem seeker and asking the right question, like in any company, CEO, it's the trait of the CEO, right, Arlen? If you know how to ask the right question, then you eventually get to the answer. But if you don't ask the right question, you're going to get lost. So this is a very important point.
And I draw the analogy that when you go see a doctor with pain, we're trained to take a pain history. And so, for example, if you came to me with face pain, because like I said, I'm an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. So if you had face pain, I would ask you, well, tell me about the pain. How bad is it? Scale of 1 to 10. When do you get it? When don't you get it? What have you tried to use to make it better? What makes it worse? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that pain history is the same thing in entrepreneurship. So instead of asking a patient, you're asking a potential customer, tell me about your pain and who has the pain and what have you tried to do to fix it and what happened when you tried to do to fix it with that product or service. What didn't you like about it? Was it expensive? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to start to get practice in what's called Steve Blank, with lean startup methodology and customer discovery. He likes this phrase, get out of the office. Well, unfortunately now, not many people can get out of the office, but there's lots of ways, including platforms like this, telemedicine, video conferencing, telephone calls, et cetera, where you can begin to interview people. And incidentally, there's a lot of people sitting around doing nothing, waiting for you to call them to have something to talk about and maybe get some info or business intelligence about the problem. So this is a great opportunity to begin to practice entrepreneurial skills and make them into entrepreneurial habits.
You know, Arlen, Africa is rising. They have the youngest population, our viewers, and when you look at it, their growth in terms of, and the issues they have on the ground, they really need this entrepreneur mindset. That's why what we're trying to do here at ITV through Natural TV, and thank you for your support. So my other question is, let's say an entrepreneur came up with the right question. Do they start with a business model or with a business plan or something else?
Well, a couple of points, because this question of I have an idea but I don't know what to do with it is a fairly common one that we hear from our members and is the reason why these education programs need to happen. So my advice is that your idea and what to do with it will depend on essentially what role you want to play and what subsegment of healthcare you're interested in. And typically, if you come up with an idea, it's typically going to have something to do with a drug, a device, a digital health solution, or a digital therapeutic, a care delivery improvement or invention or platform, medical education technology, or something that has to do with business efficiency or efficacy. So those are the general categories. Now, if you come up with an idea to make it easier for people to pay for their health care on their iPhone in the middle of Africa, that's going to be different than developing an idea for a drug for COVID, or a medical device, or a digital health app, or a remote sensor. So the roadmap will differ depending on the category of innovation that you're choosing. So, and you need to understand how that works. I mean, you need to understand the regulatory issues, you need to understand the payment issues, you need to understand the intellectual property issues, product development issues, all that kind of stuff. So that's the first step, is understand what you're getting yourself into. Then you need to understand, as I said, the next step is, who is the customer? So if you say to yourself, okay, I want to build something that makes it easier to deliver telemedicine in remote, underserved areas in central Ghana, then you need to understand who is the customer, who is going to buy this thing, who is going to use it, what's their pain, what are the issues, How do you get it to them? That's how you're going to manufacture it, all that stuff. So it starts with, there's two fundamental reasons, regardless of which idea you pursue, that you will fail. And incidentally, the likelihood that you will fail is about 95%, if not more. So go into this understanding you're most likely to fail. But the good news is you can tweak it, turn around, and start over. It's like an experiment. You run the experiment. You didn't get the results you expected, so you do another experiment, but you change your hypothesis. It's just like the scientific method, like I said. So if you're going to do that, then the two reasons are, one, you make a product that no one wants to use or buy, and two, you have a non-viable business model. In other words, you don't make money doing it. So to your point, you do not want to write a business plan. That's a total waste of time at the start. What you really want to do, identify, be a problem seeker, understand as much as you can about the problem and the competition, how you're going to be different, better, faster, smarter, cheaper, and then you have to construct a business model canvas that describes the various elements of how you are going to create, grow, and harvest value for your business. You think big, start small, stay small until it's time to get bigger. Do not try to bite off a big chunk of the apple.
Thank you. I know we probably will do more episodes together, Arlen. I'm really thrilled with your final message of start small and then continue step by step. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of Ntr TV as well as Society of Physician Entrepreneur Turkey for being our host and waking up this early in Denver, Colorado. I wish you a safe and a happy week in Denver, and also we wish the best for the United States and everyone there. Hopefully this COVID-19 will pass and we'll be able to meet face-to-face in Turkey, in Africa, and United States as well.
Yeah, you too. Stay safe, and I look forward to seeing the audience at www.soapnet.org.
Thank you very much. Please go to SOAP and make sure you connect with Arlen Meyers. He's also very well connected through LinkedIn. I want to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. This was another ITV where we actually hosted Professor Arlen Meyers from University of Colorado in Denver, who actually established the largest organization for physician entrepreneurship, which I'm proud to running here in Turkey. Take care and all the best. We'll see you next time at ITV. Bye.